mentor. I'm your friend Jaswant Pathak. So today we will discuss about French Revolution, causes, major events, impacts. This is very important for your knowledge, your fact knowledge, and all type of exam like UPSC, SSC, NDA, CDS, CUET. So French Revolution is very important and very interesting. French Revolution 1789 to 99 is a transformative period of social and political upheaval in France. In French. So the French Revolution is spanning from 1789 to 1799 was a revolutionary movement that significantly impacted France and the world. Fueled by widespread discontent among the empowered masses and over the gross inequalities and absolute power wielded by the monarchy, nobility, and clergy. So this war between nobility, monarchy, and clergy. This revolution marked a seismic shift in socio-political paradigms. The revolution witnessed the collapse of the monarchy, radical changes in the political landscape, and the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. You know about Napoleon Bonaparte? Its impact extended beyond French frontiers, inspiring nationalist movement worldwide. The French Revolution epitomized the core values of liberty, equality, and fraternity for all individuals. And if you are studies about the preamble of the Indian Constitution, you saw the fraternity is the main concept, and you can say कि this is the core of the concept. The in the preamble, this is the liberty, equality, and fraternity. France, on the eve of the revolution, France was marked by deep-rooted social inequalities among the three states, economic hardships, and political unrest. I hope I am very audible. If I am audible, please comment yes. I am very audible. Okay. So thank you. If I am audible, please comment. So first of all, France was marked by deep-rooted social inequalities among the three states, economic hardship, and political unrest, laying the groundwork for the transformative events that unfolded during the French Revolution. Number one, French society. 18th century French society was divided into three states. First state, the clergy, which included bishops, priests, and other religious officials, enjoyed significant privileges and were exempt from taxation. Second state, the nobility, comprising the aristocrats and members of the royal family, held vast land and feudal rights over the peasantry. They too were exempted from paying taxes. And third state was, this state encompassed the vast majority of the population, including the merchant and professionals, urban workers, and peasants. They bore the brunt of the tax burden imposed by the monarchy, fueling resentment towards the privileged classes. This rigid social stratification, known as the old regime, perpetuated inequalities and contributed to the mounting discontent that ultimately sparked the French Revolution. Next one is French polity. If I am just discuss about French polity, so France was an absolute monarchy with King Louis XVI, Louis XVI holding supreme power. The monarchy was considered divinely ordinate and the king ruled through a vast bureaucracy. Next is French economy. The French economy was primarily agricultural, with a significant portion of the population engaged in farming. What was the French Revolution causes? Several factors contributed to the causes of the French Revolution. The first causes of the French Revolution is economic inequality. Economic inequality. Most rural peasants lived in extreme poverty, struggling to make ends meet while shouldering heavy tax burdens. The clergy and nobility, meanwhile, were exempted from taxes and granted privileges. Second crisis is the financial crisis. Years of extravagant spending by the monarchy, particularly King Louis XVI and the royal court, drained the state coffers and left the government heavily indebted. Next one is social injustice. This is the very important of the causes of the French Revolution. The third state, which comprised the majority of the population, faced inequality in terms of representation and political power. They were burdened with heavy taxes and lacked social mobility, while the nobility and clergy enjoyed numerous privileges and monopolies. Next one is urban poor resentment. The urban poor facing unemployment, rising prices, and inadequate social welfare grew increasingly resentful of the ruling regime, and in resentment they restored to rights. Hello, Pallavi ma'am, Maris, Sum. Thank you so much for this watching this session. I hope all you are enjoyed. Okay, so next one is enlightenment ideas. What was the enlightenment ideas? Basically, enlightenment philosophies which emphasized individual liberty, reason and equality had a significant influence on the intellectual climate in France. Thinkers such as Voltaire, Rousseau and Montesquieu. Next name is Montesquieu. Second one is Rousseau. Voltaire, Rousseau and Montesquieu promoted ideas of individual liberty, reason and equality, inspiring a new wave of progressive thought. Two persons are very important in French Revolution. One is Rousseau. Rousseau is very important thinker, and second one is Montesquieu. Montesquieu gives a separation of power between legislature, executive and judiciary. Okay, Rousseau expanded upon these ideas of proposing a form of government based on a social contract between people and their representatives. And Voltaire criticized religious intolerance and campaigned freedom of speech and reason. And Montesquieu promoted ideas of individual liberty, reason and equality, inspiring a new wave of progressive thought. Montesquieu in the Spirit of the Laws. Always remember this particular book, The Spirit of the Laws. Advocated for a division within the government into legislative, executive and judicial branches, as well as separation of power among them. Very important, separation of power given by the Montesquieu in the Spirit of Laws. This model of government was put into practice in the United States following the colonies' declaration of independence from Britain. The French intellectuals found great inspiration in the American Constitution and its protection of individual rights. Influence of the American Revolution. The success of the American Revolution against British rule demonstrated that a determined population could overthrow a monarchy and establish a democratic government. French leaders like Lafayette participated in the American Revolution and they became the forebears of the revolution in France on their return. Next problem is weak leadership. The monarchy under Louis XVI faced challenges due to the weak leadership, a lack of decision action, and a growing disconnect with the needs and aspiration of the population. Queen Marie Antoinette, Queen Mary, her extravagant lifestyle and perceived indifference to the struggle of the French Revolution aggravated public resentment. She was originally from Austria, which made her a foreign queen in the eyes of the French people. This fueled negative sentiments towards her and the monarchy. Next, we will discuss about the French Revolution outbreak. The outbreak of the revolution was caused by the particular actions of Louis XVI. They can be understood. First one is Louis XVI need to increase taxes. 16 faced financial difficulties due to French involvement in costly wars such as the American Revolutionary War, which strained the royal treasury. The existing tax system was outdated and inefficient, failing to generate sufficient revenue to meet the growing expenses of the monarchy. Next problem is calling the Estates General. Louis XVI as the monarch did not possess the authority to unilaterally impose taxes. He had to convene a meeting of the Estates General and Assembly representing the three estates. The Estates General had not been called for over 2 centuries, and Louis XVI took the initiative to summon the Assembly on 5 May 1789 at Versailles. Composition of Estates General. The first and second estate sent 300 representatives each, while the third estate had 600 representatives, mainly comprising prosperous and educated individuals. Peasants, artisans, and women were excluded from the assembly. Peasants and artisans and women are excluded from the assembly. Demands of the third estate. The third estate members sought equal representation and demanded that voting in the estate general be conducted by the assembly as a whole, with each member having one vote. This demand aligned the democratic principle advocated by philosophers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and his book The Social Contract. Always remember the Social Contract, written by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, is very important role play in the French Revolution. What was the important events of the French Revolution? तो first is टेनिस कोर्ट ओथ वॉक आउट हुआ when Louis XVI rejected the third estate demand for voting reform. The representatives of the third estate walked out the assembly in protest. Tennis court oath. On 20th June 1789, they convened in the indoor tennis court at Versailles and declared themselves the National Assembly. The National Assembly swore not to disappear until a constitution was drafted to limit the powers of the monarch. Second one is storming of the Bastille. National Assemblies. Peasants uprising. Rumors spread in the countryside that lords of the manor had hired brigands that destroy crops, causing peasants to attack and seize hoarded grain. Many nobles fled their homes and migrated to neighboring countries in fear. A recognition of the National Assembly faced with the revolt of this subject, Louis XVI recognized the National Assembly and accepted the need of the Constitution to limit his powers. And then reforms. On 4th of August 1789, the Assembly passed a decree abolishing the feudal system, including obligation and taxes. And the clergy were also forced to relinquish their privileges, and church lands were confiscated, providing the government with significant asset worth at least 2 billion livres, yani French currency. Livres was a French currency. Then final round was the constitution making. The National Assembly drafted the constitution in 1791, by which France became a constitutional monarchy. The objective of the constitution, the main objective was to limit the powers of the monarch and establish a system of governance that separated and distributed powers among different institutions. Separation of powers. What is the separation of powers? The constitution assigned powers to different institutions, namely the legislature, executive, and judiciary. This separation ensured a system of check and balance, preventing any one entity from having excessive control. All right. Limited suffrage. Men over 25 who paid taxes equal to at least 3 days worth of labor's wages were deemed to be active citizens and were therefore eligible to vote. The rest of the men and all women were classified as passive citizens, meaning they did not possess voting rights. All right. So this is the major events of the French Revolution. Up next one is National Convention and birth of the first French Revolution. So this is the French Revolution. Causes. What was the causes? Colonialism, taxation without representation, restrictions of civil liberties by British rule, social inequalities, fiscal crisis, abuse of privileges by nobility and clergy. What is the difference between American Revolution and French Revolution? So American Revolution was the ideological basis like principle of natural rights, individual interest, republicanism. And there is French Revolution, ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity, collective rights, general will, social contract. What was the goals of American Revolution? Independence from British rule, self-governance, individual interest, limited government. And what was the goals of French Revolution? Reform of the absolute monarchy, the establishment of a constitutional government, collective interest, general will, and social justice. What outcomes of American Revolution? What was the outcomes of American Revolution? Establishment of a federal republic government, the United States of America. And what was the French Revolution outcomes? Abolition of the monarchy and establishment of a republic, later the Napoleon Empire. Leadership, if I am just talk about leadership, figures like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. This is American Revolution. And now figures like Maximilian Robespierre, George Danton and Napoleon Bonaparte. This is a French Revolution. What was the inspiration of American Revolution? Inspired by English liberals and Enlightenment thinkers like John Locke, Thomas Paine. And their French Revolution inspired by radical French thinkers like Voltaire, Rousseau and Montesquieu. What was the global impact of American Revolution? Inspired revolution in Latin America and Europe, promoted democratic ideals And what was the French Revolution of global impact? A spread of revolutionary ideals across Europe, rise of nationalism and secularism. Okay, so this is the difference between French Revolution and American Revolution. So I hope this lecture is very beneficial for you. I hope you are very well enjoyed. So thank you. Have a good night. Bye bye. Take care.